All right, my guy, Stephen Thiel, you hear me today. We're talking, Stephen, VP of Product, Attack Interactive. We are going to talk a little bit about the bias of HubSpot and Salesforce agencies. First, how are you today?
Good, good. How are you?
Good. Pleasantries aside, let's talk about HubSpot and Salesforce. Uh, so these two entities, obviously, they're competitors, right? And I like their competition. Like you see, HubSpot sales reps, they'll get like a good nod as like best CRM on like G2 or something, and they'll all of their reps are like, "Suck it, Salesforce. We're coming on your turn." Like it's funny. It's like great little brother energy, but um the ecosystems are very similar in that there's HubSpot agencies and they're all HubSpot and Salesforce agencies and they're all Salesforce. And it almost feels tribal, kind of like baseball, right? Like, you either cheer for the Red Sox or the Yankees. You can't cheer for baseball. So, what is it about this bias that customers need to understand so they can live in the most harmonious world possible? Because we know that HubSpot and Salesforce, you can have them both and they can play nice together, or you can be the right company in the wrong system altogether. So how do customers need to look at this bias?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all kind of starts with there's like this thought process that hey, if you're using Marketing Hub already, you have to go to your only option is Sales Hub, or if you're in on the Salesforce side of things, you're using Sales Cloud, like you have to go with Marketing Cloud. And a lot of that starts internally sometimes, but not like just feeling like it's too big of a lift to incorporate another system, look at adding something else to the tech stack. But then it also comes from like the agency side. There are not many agencies or consultants that work in both systems. They tend to be more segmented. Sure, there's a few outliers out there, but they tend to either be all in on the HubSpot ecosystem or all in on the Salesforce ecosystem. So then like you're feeling their pressure internally, then you might be getting different messaging from a consultant that you're working with. That hey, I only know Salesforce. We got to stay with we got to go with Marketing Cloud. Hey, I only know HubSpot. Like we got to go with Sales Hub.
Well, let's address that because you got to be a little bit of a rebel to want to play in both with both companies because they at the company level they are so competitive with one another, right? Like our HubSpot rep hates that we're talking about this right now, right? Our Salesforce rep does not like this at all. It's they wish we didn't work within both, but at the end of the day, if you care most about the customer and what's best for them, then you're going to be able to talk to them about the limitations of Pardot. You're going to talk about what happens if your sales team grows out of HubSpot. We see these things all the time, and none of them are wrong or bad. It's all great use cases, right? Because we want the right companies to be able to utilize these technologies for the revenue operations, right? And we want them to get the most out of them. And so we want them to be happy. We want them to be organized. We want them to be working at an optimal level. And to do that, sometimes we have to look at the imperfections of the two different systems for different use cases and see how to either use one platform in totality or how to connect the two so that these two are playing really nice together. But I think going back to the original point, the bias is so hard because I think when going back to the whole story brand philosophy, like companies are looking for their Yoda, right? They want someone to bring them to this idea of a promised land where RevOps are just absolutely streamlined and they're working and they're humming and everybody's doing what they're supposed to do and everyone's hitting quota and we're all making money hand over fist and everything's really great, right? But you go to those consultants, and if, to your point, if you only know one of the two, then you're in a little bit of trouble. But also, you've got people you know, on each side that are, but let's be honest, there's commission structures, there's meetings and these ecosystems that these software companies build, which are fabulous and amazing, but they're going to be heavily influenced by them. How do we help like ease that influence and let everybody know that it's not the Red Sox or the Yankees. It's like, hey, RevOps is baseball. And if you love good baseball, like sometimes you got to cheer for different teams to do different things. I'm not sure if the metaphor holds up here anymore, but you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's all about taking, I'd say, like a holistic look at like the right tech stack for your specific RevOps engine. Like a lot of this kind of starts back to, HubSpot for the longest time was in the SMB market. especially on the Sales Hub side. Like HubSpot started as a marketing software, and people are. I still interact with people like, oh wait, HubSpot has a sales tool now. Like they still don't always know that, even though HubSpot's invested heavily in Sales Hub, and it does have a lot of enterprise functionality now. For the longest time, they were just pigeonholed as being a marketing program in the SMB market. That's evolved a lot. Salesforce has done the same. Salesforce for the longest time was looked at as being just enterprise level, but they've come in, they have different packaging and licensing models now that make it a lot easier for SMBs to use Salesforce without having, 50 sales reps who need to be in the system. So I think they're both battling that kind of messaging internally, like who's right, what's the right target demo or a target, software for us based on our needs. And it kind of starts internally, looks at that messaging. But I think every company needs to take a holistic look at like their RevOps engine, because there are times where it does 100% make sense to be using, HubSpot on the marketing side, Salesforce on the sales side. We see it vice versa, not as common, and that's typically the use case there. But it's like holistic. Like, what do you guys need internally? Like, if it's do we have more technical marketers internally? Do we have dev resources? If you don't have dev resources, it makes it a little difficult to stay within Salesforce on the marketing side, because a lot does need to be custom coded to get it. It can do Salesforce marketing tools can do a lot, but they do require some dev resources to get email templates where you want them to be. If you will, multi-step forms, not standard in Salesforce. Those have to be custom coded. So it's like, what internal resources do you have? And then what external resources do you want to have to invest in to make a tool work? Or do we say HubSpot makes sense on the marketing side? It's more user friendly. Things are drag and drop. Let our marketing team live in there. Let our sales team live in Salesforce. And then, as long as it's thought out strategically, they work harmoniously together.
And let's hit on that bias, because there's certainly the organizational bias, but there's the occupational bias. I once talked to a SaaS sales vet, and I was like, "Oh yeah, what CRM are you on?" And she goes, "Is there another one?" Alluding to Salesforce. And, and if you ever talk to anybody who started in like the HubSpot Marketing Cloud, get them a couple drinks and talk to them about, you'd be like, I don't think Pardot's all that bad, and watch them go crazy. It's, so there is that industry bias, right? Or I don't know if it's industry, it's more occupational, right? Marketers typically love HubSpot. Salespeople are trained to love Salesforce, and, independent people thinking can see good use cases for each. But before we go, I really would like to paint the promised land. And we don't need to name a client by hand, but like, let's talk about the story of a customer who is utilizing both Salesforce and HubSpot. Give just a kind of a little bit of background of who they are, what their makeup is, and then how they're thriving in both systems.
Yeah, I mean, we have a handful of clients that are doing that. Typically, I'll use one client that's more in we can say in the SaaS space. They were a tech company, of course. They were Salesforce heavy. They were using, the marketing side of Salesforce. They're using account engagement there, and then new hires came on board, and the new hires like, hey, we're in charge of marketing now. Like this doesn't make sense for us. We need to be, our background is in HubSpot. We need to be in HubSpot. So of course they led the charge. They went with HubSpot, and then they relied on their Salesforce agency to try to help them integrate the two. A Salesforce agency that in this case didn't necessarily have experience in the HubSpot side. And that's where things kind of got derailed, because the integration does require either an agency that knows both sides of it, or two different consultants from each ecosystem working together to get everything integrated in a way that makes sense for this company. They are using everything harmoniously now. The HubSpot team, the marketing team loves HubSpot. They've got different webinar tools that are like API integrated. They're running all their paid ads and whatnot through there. And the sales team likes it now on the Salesforce side, because we can embed, like visual windows in Salesforce. They can see marketing emails that are going out. So there is more collaboration. But it also all started with the head of marketing and the head of sales aligning. They're on the same page. They know, what that marketing to sales handoff process looked like. They work together to build out that flow for what's a qualified lead. When do we need to nurture a lead? And so when they're aligned, it makes it a lot easier to drop it down to everybody else, and then to get it implemented in a way that makes sense for their use case.
I love it. And it's just a great example of how these two can absolutely work together. It's not one or the other. It's not Red Sox or Yankees. You can be Johnny Damon or Jacoby Ellsbury, and you can be with both, right? And and I think that you just need the right consultants who are willing to say, like, we understand and like both sandboxes, and we will eliminate all bias to do what's right by you, the customer, for what your goals are, and to be able to help you hit those. So, anything else that we need to touch on to really help explain the HubSpot Salesforce bias and how we can overcome it?
No, no, I think we did a good job covering it there. I think it just again starts, looking internally and externally and like really you putting in that holistic view into like your tech stack audit and like eliminating the idea of software, but and then go and pushing forward with, I don't care what program, what tool we're using on each side, what does the promise line look like? Then you can figure out what software, you're going to use to execute on that.
That's great. Awesome. Thanks so much, Steven. This was awesome.
Appreciate it.
That's it for today. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up and make sure you hit subscribe so you can see our latest videos as soon as they drop. We really appreciate you watching. See you next time.